Boruto is officially returned with a really cool start to Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. This is the moment so many fans have been waiting for. The Boruto time skip is finally here and the hype train is back. Now, I just released an hour-and-a-half long retroactive analysis video on the time skip in Boruto Part 1 earlier today, so I'm gonna focus this review solely on the chapter itself and the implications moving forward. So this chapter starts off with one of my favorite 3 scenes of the chapter, with Sarada arguing with Shikamaru at the Hokage office, because Sarada is advocating for Boruto's innocence, while Shikamaru and Konoha naturally aren't buying any of it because they were affected by omnipotence. Shikamaru says that they gave Boruto many chances, but he crossed the line first. He is a traitor who killed the Hokage and tried to kill his son Kawaki too. He cannot go unpunished. Now, Sarada says that they need to give him a chance because Boruto would never kill Lord 7. However, Konoha says, "Why'd he run away if he's not guilty?" And that they also have Eida's Senrigan eyewitness testimony. And Sarada points out the most obvious thing ever, which is, if someone ordered your death, wouldn't you run too? Like, no duh, Konoha. Of course he would run away. So what do you expect them to do? So she begs Shikamaru to resign the order so that way they can hear Boruto out for once. Now, Shikamaru does make a good point and says that the sanction against Boruto isn't just in line with Konoha laws, it's the will of our people. Many of those living here are still angry about his betrayal. So even if I lift my orders, people will stay unconvinced. And I think the best example of that, which we'll see later in the chapter, is Mitsuki. We saw at the end of Boruto chapter 80 that there is no way in hell that Mitsuki was just gonna drop this whole "I'm gonna kill Boruto" thing. He would do it whether there was an order to kill Boruto or not. That's just how Mitsuki is, and that's just how a lot of the Leaf Villagers are too. They're not gonna forgive someone who they believe killed their Hokage. It's the same way as how people wanted to kill Sasuke, Itachi, Orochimaru, and any other rogue ninja for that matter in the Leaf Village back in Naruto. Most people had absolutely no shot of defeating Orochimaru, Sasuke, or Itachi, but that doesn't mean that they didn't want to kill them or want to see them dead. It's the same with Boruto here. Most of the Leaf Villagers have absolutely no chance of stopping Boruto in a fight, but that doesn't mean that they don't want to kill him. So Shikamaru asserts that this is the last time they will speak of this and orders Sarada to get back to her mission. Sarada, however, just yells at Shikamaru and calls him a blockhead, and Konoha says, "Hey Sarada, this is Lord 8th you're mouthing off at." So we finally get an answer as to who became the 8th Hokage, and in the end it was Shikamaru, which isn't all that surprising because Shikamaru was Naruto's advisor and Kakashi's advisor, and when Naruto was stuck in Shigen's dimension back in chapter 39, Shikamaru took over as Hokage essentially, while Naruto was gone. So I don't think anyone's really surprised by the fact that Shikamaru is the 8th Hokage. What's more interesting though, is that Konoha clearly appears to be Shikamaru's advisor. So I think Sai would have been the only other reasonable choice for this matter, since he was the leader of the Anbu, but it looks like Shikamaru chose Konoha, which does imply that Konoha is next in line to be the 9th Hokage. Definitely not Sarada with the way that our conversation with Shikamaru is going so far, although we all know that Sarada definitely has high Hokage potential in the future. But still, Konoha is rising up the ranks, so hopefully we'll get to see him do something for once, or at least say some important things to Shikamaru's advisor. In any case though, Shikamaru says, "Sarada, I'm worried about you. At this rate, forget Hokage, you'll never be more than Genin." So as a quick pause, I am a little bit annoyed that they do this, but there's this disparity between the manga and the anime here, and I don't know why. Like, in the anime, Sarada was explicitly promoted to Chunin. She's not a Genin anymore. So I don't know why the manga does this. It's like they're pretending the anime is filler, and it's just gonna support that stupid anime is filler nonsense, because they're not even consistent here. I don't know why they didn't just say you'll never be more than Chunin. Now, if the anime has Shikamaru demote Sarada for mouthing off to him, that's a different story. That can work. But otherwise, I'm like, come on, can you just keep it consistent? Anyway, though, Sarada asks if it's because her dad is a traitor too, just like Boruto. Now, Shikamaru says that this has nothing to do with Sasuke, he's talking solely about Sarada's future as a Konoha shinobi. Now Sarada responds with my favorite line from Sarada in the entire series, which is that Lord Seventh once brought back my dad, who'd gone rogue and committed great crimes. He became Hokage while still a genin. My role model is Lord Seventh, not you. Drop the mic, baby, dude. I love it. Dude, she called Shikamaru out, and it's great. Like I said, I haven't been the biggest fan of Sarada in part 1. I mean, I know a lot of people like Sarada. I don't really care for her too much in part 1. However, I'm liking her a lot more in part 2 now because I like this scene with her. I like how she called Shikamaru out. Like, and she's absolutely right. Shikamaru knows that Naruto refused to give up on Sasuke despite all the crazy stuff that was happening, and he became a Hokage while still a genin. So there's absolutely no reason why Sarada can't do this too. Naruto proclaimed this back in the Chunin exams, that even if he was a genin for the rest of his life, he'd still be Hokage one day, and he was absolutely right. That's exactly what happened. So Sarada's probably gonna think exactly like Naruto did, which is that, how could I become Hokage if I can't even save a friend? Sarada's priority is saving her friend Boruto. Only then does she deserve the potential to become the Hokage. Now, something else I found interesting about that scene is the fact that Sarada knows that her dad went rogue and committed many great crimes. Because, unless I'm forgetting something, they covered up all of Sasuke's bad past in Boruto Part 1. Like, I know explicitly in the time travel arc of the Boruto anime that Boruto only just discovered in that arc that Sasuke even left the village in the first place. And he had absolutely no idea about anything else Sasuke did. And as far as we've seen, he still doesn't know. And the same was for Sarada too. She literally was trying to research stuff on the Uchiha clan, and it was all locked up. She couldn't access it. So I'm not sure when she learned this stuff about Sasuke. Perhaps a lot of people were spreading rumors because, the older Leaf villagers know the truth. So when Sasuke became a traitor, maybe they started bringing up the past again, saying, "Oh, Sasuke's a traitor again, blah blah blah," and Sarada overheard and learned the truth about Sasuke. That could easily work and makes a lot of sense, but we don't actually know yet. Hopefully they'll explain where she got that intel though. In any case, we then cut to Daikoku 10, where Kawaki is visiting Naruto and Hinata, and we see that Kawaki can go in and out of this dimension, and seemingly move about freely in this frozen in time state. So what I'm interested in finding out is whether or not all otsutsuki can move in this dimension, or if only those with that specific Dabra Wheel Dojutsu can do this, which would be Kawaki, Ashiki, Jigen, or Shibai based on the looks of Shibai's eye. So hypothetically, if Kawaki succeeded in sending Boruto to Daikoku 10, would Boruto just be able to move anyway? Would it be essentially pointless to send him there? Or would he also be frozen in time? That's just something we don't have an answer to, but I am very curious about, especially in light of the mysterious time-stopping thing with Momoshiki, which I actually just made a recent video about. Anyway though, we then cut to Sarada and Sumire where they have a pretty interesting conversation. So Sumire explains that due to Eida's omnipotence, nobody even recognizes that something isn't quite right. In fact, to them, we're the ones who are weird. To them, Kawaki has always been the 7th Hokage's son. Kawaki Uzumaki. That's the simple truth. And Boruto's a rebellious outsider, an ungrateful traitor. This is exactly why it's so difficult for Sarada and Sumire to convince the whole village of the truth, because to them, Sarada and Sumire are the odd ones out. They're the only two people advocating for Boruto's innocence out of 10,000 people or more or whatever, who knows how many people in the village. So it's kind of hard to convince 10,000 people of something with only two people doing the convincing. They have to have some really convincing proof, which is hard because everyone has these specific memories that were altered, so what they're saying just sounds blatantly wrong. More importantly though, this is where things get interesting. Sarada says, early on, everyone still sensed some of the paradox. Like, how could Kara have modified Kawaki's body if he'd been born and raised in this village? And what happened to Momoshiki? Even Master Shikamaru hounded Kawaki about that. As they should, because all of these things are very obvious. They are things that should have been pointed out, and Sarada hasn't even scratched the surface of the obvious things here, such as the Uzumaki family photos, which Himawari can see literally every day at her house, or all the academy photos, which people like Shino, Uruka, Anko, and anyone else who works at the academy would be able to see at any given time. These things would make Kawaki look very sus, so I'm glad to see that they at least started off hounding Kawaki about it. However, this is the interesting part. That slight unease also slowly dissipated over time thanks to omnipotence, so that now no one has any doubts left. So this is really interesting, and there's two ways you could go about explaining this. The first is that the omnipotence role reversal was just a one and done type of thing. However, because their memories are telling them one thing, they slowly started to just ignore the facts and just believe their memories instead. Let's just say they looked at the Uzumaki family photos and saw Boruto instead of Kawaki. What they're seeing for the evidence might tell them, hey, something is wrong, but just over time, having the memory of Kawaki being in that household instead, they may have just slowly decided, you know what, maybe that evidence is just wrong. They may have just started to ignore the facts because of what their memory said. The other option is that omnipotence actively changed the physiology of the villagers over time. So at first, they had new memories, but the facts were what they were, and they were pretty sus. However, the same way that if you try to fight Eida's love charm, your brain starts to go out of whack and you start to have problems like Amato explained in chapter 69, the same thing might apply here. Anyone who tried to fight their memories essentially by looking at the facts would experience brain damage, and it would suck, it'd be painful, and slowly over time omnipotence just made them stop looking at the facts and believe their memories instead, so that way their minds could just function normally. It's just that powerful, like Sarada points out. I think either explanation makes sense and could work, and honestly it could just be a blend of the two because, in a way, they're kind of like the exact same thing, just worded differently. Moving on though, I also really like this next scene of the chapter, which has Eida and Damon. So the first thing to note is that Eida and Damon look identical. I want to do a quick pause here, so I brought this up in my spoiler review, but a lot of people keep saying that Eida and Damon are robots so they won't age. They're not ever stated to be robots. They're stated to be cyborgs. Cyborgs are humans modified by science. They're not robots created by science. They're just humans who were modified. Every other cyborg, like Kawaki, Code, anyone else we know of in Gaara, still aged like normal. So the idea that Eida and Damon wouldn't age because they're cyborgs just doesn't make sense, because every other cyborg aged. What makes Eida and Damon unique is that they have Shibai's DNA. So Shibai's DNA would be the likely culprit for them to not look like they're aging. Which of course is related to them being cyborgs, but it's not just because they're cyborgs, it's because they have Shibai's DNA. That would be the more likely way to explain it, because otherwise you run into the problem, well, why did Kawaki? He's a cyborg. Why did Code age? He was a cyborg, and so on. Anyway though, Damon says, "You still ain't giving up? It's an unwinnable game, you know." And Eida says, "I have no control over omnipotence, just like my ability to charm. Though recently, we've at least started to understand how it works." Now, Sarada asks if they have any new information, and Eida says, "What we know right now is that omnipotence is a type of otsutsuki shinjutsu that makes one's desires real, and that it was Kawaki's desire that created our current circumstances. Everyone's memories were changed. Everything they remembered about Boruto and Kawaki was rewritten, resulting in the two switching positions." Now, I gotta point this out, but this is not recent new information. Eida learned this 3 years ago because Boruto explained to her in chapter 80 what Momoshiki told him. Eida's known this for a while now, so she didn't figure this out. If she recently discovered new information about how it works, she's not telling Sarada and Sumire about it right now. She's hiding it. So she's either just capping about recently figuring it out, or she's capping about what the new information is, because Eida's known about this for a while now. In any case though, Sarada asks if there's no way to reverse it, and Eida says, "I don't know, but it's no use talking to those who are affected by omnipotence. They'll never understand." Now Sarada argues that the actual truth is reasonable enough that we simply need to explain it properly, but Eida says, think about it. Aren't you the ones whose memories are considered flawed? So who take you seriously? To be brutally frank, I'd give up on trying to return things to the way they were. It'd be more practical to just rewrite different memories, though there's risk in that too. And that could be foreshadowing that at some point in the future, Eida will use omnipotence again to rewrite people's memories. Perhaps something similar to what they were before, but probably not 100% exactly the same for the sake of conflict. The tricky part is exactly what Eida would do and why, because Eida can really just do whatever she wants. As of right now, she's not really against Boruto as she was annoyed with Kawaki in chapter 80, but she still thinks Kawaki is hot and wants to date him, so it's unlikely that she's going to go against Kawaki anytime in the near future. Something would have to happen to cause that rift to grow further. That said, that would be really interesting, and I can't wait to see what comes from Eida moving forward. Getting back to the chapter though, this is one of my favorite parts of the chapter too, because Eida says, in any case, I still find it mystifying how the two of you manage to retain your memories when you're not otsutsuki. Both omnipotence and charm have no effect on otsutsuki. They also don't work on family members like Damon, but you two are neither. How are you able to retain your true memories? Or more importantly, are you sure you're both really my captives? Eida's calling them out because she knows they're sus, and I love it. Sarada and Samurai then start sweating and Damon's just looking at him, and you know they're all onto them. There's no way they're getting around this. Now Samurai tries to cover it up and is like, oh please, we told you over and over, Sarada and I were just putting up a front to hide our feelings. I mean, come on, no one can escape being charmed by you, right? But Damon's still staring at her, and so is Eida. And Eida says, true, that's what I believe. Except I don't think that's really what she believes. And again, Damon in this whole scene is just staring at them. You know he's on to them, and you know this is going to cause problems later on. Now we then cut to Kawaki and Mitsuki, where Kawaki says, control your bloodthirst, Mitsuki. It's totally suffocating. And Mitsuki says, I'm sure Boruto still wants to kill you, and he's a Sasuke just like you. So it's quite possible he's mastered the ability to erase his chakra signature. And Kawaki says, if he comes here, I'll feel it right away. Even if he eludes the sensory unit, he can't trick me. You know that. That's because Kawaki and Boruto can sense each other, whether they're masking their chakra signatures or not. And Mitsuki says, I want to protect you. I will kill him. I swear it. And Kawaki says, sure, do as you please. Just quit following me around like some sick perv. It's annoying. And this is the kind of thing I wanted to see with Kawaki. I want to see his ridiculous interactions with the Leaf Villagers that are not Boruto-like at all. Boruto would never call Mitsuki a sick pervert for following him around. And Mitsuki says, but Kawaki, you're... And then they get interrupted by a Konoha search party, which is that they found claw marks outside the wall. Then Kawaki starts flying off in the distance, and Mitsuki says, you're the sun shining brightly upon my moon. Aren't you, Kawaki? Now, I find this scene actually really interesting because there's different ways you can look at it. The first is that, well, no, Kawaki is not actually the sun that would shine upon the moon like Boruto was supposed to be for Mitsuki. So, Kawaki would negatively affect Mitsuki and make him darker rather than making him a brighter person than he was before. Now, the other way you can look at this scene is that maybe Mitsuki is noticing that something is wrong with Kawaki. He's supposed to be the sun shining brightly upon Mitsuki's moon, right? Except Kawaki isn't doing that. If anything, he's doing the reverse. And this might be bothering Mitsuki. And I'm really interested in seeing how that interaction plays out moving forward, because there could be a cool way for Mitsuki to start to turn on Kawaki, especially if he sees Boruto and he looks at Boruto and is like, wow, that's a bright figure. A lot like the sun that Kawaki was supposed to be. That could be really interesting, so I say keep an eye on Mitsuki moving forward. We then cut to Himawari training with Chocho, and it's really nice to see that Himawari finally decided to become a ninja like everyone wanted. Been building this up forever, so thank God they finally did it. And Chocho does beat her in their little sparring session, but I mean, Chocho's the experienced ninja here, not Himawari. And when it comes to Himawari, she's really talented, but her crazy OP-ness comes from when she goes, "Lock on!" which she doesn't do consciously, it just kind of happens randomly when she needs to, and that's probably the hidden power that Damon was hyping up. In any case, though, I thought it was funny when Shikamaru's like, "You are Kawaki's little sis, alright." It's like, that didn't even look alike, dude. The last thing I'd do is look at Himawari and be like, "Yeah, you're Kawaki's sister." What's more interesting, though, is that Inojin asks Himawari, "Why do you want to get so strong?" And Himawari says, "It's not that I want to get strong, it's just, okay, I feel like everyone in Konoha would yell at me for saying this, but I, kinda want to help Boruto, you see." Everyone's just like, "What? You don't mean that, do you? That's not funny." And Himawari says, "Sorry, I know it sounds wacky, but how do I put it? What everyone says about him is totally different from what I remember of him." And Shikamaru's like, he killed your dad, remember?" And Himawari says, "I don't think he did. I mean, I saw with my own eyes him risking his life to protect my dad and me. Such a person wouldn't kill my dad. There has to be some explanation, and if that is the case, Boruto's gotta be in deep trouble. Besides, I have this feeling that my dad is still alive somewhere." Now, a couple things I want to point out. This does confirm that Himawari was affected by omnipotence, because she explicitly says she saw with her own eyes him risking his life to protect my dad and me. This is in reference to when Kawaki risked his life to protect Himawari and Naruto against Delta. Boruto didn't do that at any point in the fight. There's no scene of Boruto protecting Himawari and Naruto in any fight in Boruto. It never happened. Not to say that Boruto wouldn't do that, but he never did do that. Kawaki is the only one who did that. So because Himawari is saying she saw with her own eyes Boruto doing that, that does confirm that her memories were altered too. She was affected by omnipotence. Himawari just doesn't care, because she still loves both of her brothers dearly. She loved Boruto, and she loved Kawaki before omnipotence, and she still loves them both afterwards. And that's why she has trust in them. So while it is true that over time, omnipotence did get rid of a lot of the uneasiness people had in regards to the cold hard facts about, like, Momoshiki wasn't in Kawaki, he was modified by Kara, and so on. However, that doesn't mean that people can't kind of go against their memories. In the case of Himawari, she doesn't care. She still loves and trusts Boruto the same way she still would have loved and trusted Kawaki if omnipotence never was used in the first place. Similarly, you have Sasuke. He trusts his daughter so much that he doesn't care what omnipotence is telling him. He's going to trust his daughter regardless. And he also noticed the facts that were kind of odd, like the Momoshiki thing, for example. So when we come back to the Mitsuki thing, we might see something similar to Himawari and Sasuke, where Mitsuki starts to believe that the whole sun thing isn't going the way it's supposed to. Kawaki's not being the sun he's supposed to be, whereas Boruto is being the sun even though he's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be this bad guy, but somehow he's still shining brightly upon Mitsuki. That might make Mitsuki disregard his memories the same way Himawari and Sasuke are. Moving on though, Kawaki then shrinks a claw mark and notices one on some Leaf Villager's neck, meaning that Code has been sneaking around putting claw marks on people from a distance. This allows Code to send one of his 10 Tails claw grime into the Leaf Village randomly out of a villager's neck, where they then start attacking the villagers. And a small, completely random side note, I thought it was really funny, in one of these panels, there's a lady screaming, "Ah, ah!" that looks a lot like Sakura. It's definitely not Sakura, but it looks so much like her, and I thought it was funny and wanted to point it out. Anyway though, Kawaki starts attacking the villagers, and he says, "Run now. Follow the shinobi's instructions," which I found really interesting. He's saying to follow the shinobi's instructions. In other words, he's believing in the age of ninja right now. We know based off the flash forward scene that at some point he's going to say the age of shinobi is over. So Kawaki has not yet adopted that philosophy yet, which I find interesting, and I want to watch that moving forward. Sarada then starts fighting some claw grime too, but they keep teleporting out of each other and adding more and more, and then Code comes out of one of them and says, "Nice to finally meet you, Sarada Uchiha." And she asks what he wants with Konoha, and he says, "I'm looking for Boruto." She tells him that he isn't here, but Code already knows this. He says that he's been chasing him for almost 2 years now, and he's tired. Sarada tells him to go look somewhere else though because he isn't here, and Code says, "I wasn't clear, let me rephrase. I've decided to stop looking. That's why I came here. I thought I'd have his former friends, toward whom he still cares about, summon him. I hope you can scream real pretty, so that it will reach him." And then Boruto makes his legendary entrance where he just randomly shows up out of nowhere and stomps on Code's face, and it's absolutely ridiculous looking. Code just looks so helpless and it's hilarious. But on Boruto's end, it is super cool. One of the coolest entrances in the series so far. And he tells Code it's that kind of sick thinking that creeps girls out. Code then tries to attack Boruto, but he dodges and jumps in the air, and it's only then that Kawaki notices that Boruto is in the village, and it's only then that Shino, or whoever that is, notices Boruto's chakra in the village. So, I'm not sure if it's a matter of they just showed the reactions like a couple moments after Boruto arrives, or if it's meant to imply that they just straight up didn't notice Boruto until he jumped up in the air above Code. I'm not sure which it is. I know a lot of people think that Boruto stopped time, but that still wouldn't explain when he's talking to Code and Sarada is watching him do this, and Code's attacking him, clearly moving in time. That wouldn't explain why they reacted later on. So I don't know if it's just the way they drew it and that's all there is to it. That probably makes the most sense, but I wanted to point it out anyway. Now, Shikamaru orders everyone to prioritize confronting Code and his claw grinds, but to keep an eye on Boruto's movements and try to figure out his plan. And this is the smart move. Code is definitely the biggest wildcard and the most untrustworthy here. They know that even in their weird altered memories, that Boruto doesn't like Code, it would naturally want to fight Code too. So it makes sense to utilize Boruto for the sake of defeating Code while just keeping an eye on him. It's similar to how a lot of people didn't trust Sasuke in the War Arc, but that doesn't mean they didn't let him fight against Obito and Madara, because they knew, hey, Sasuke's really strong and he's trying to help us right now. Might as well use his help, and then deal with him after. It's the same type of idea here. Now, I still find this panel hilarious, where the Clock Rhyme are just standing behind Boruto and Sarada, and they're not doing anything. And they look so funny when they do it. They look so confused and astonished to see Boruto, and I just can't get over it. Like, Boruto's just standing there, and they're not attacking him or Sarada, where they have the perfect opportunity to snatch her off guard, because, trust me, Sarada is not thinking about the Clock Rhyme right now. She is just so shocked to see Boruto that she's not thinking about anything else. Now, Kawaki then says, seemingly from a distance, "You've finally shown yourself, Boruto," and they have this three-way panel with Code, Kawaki, and Boruto. I don't think Kawaki actually appears there in that moment yet. I think he's just standing where he was before, and it will appear there soon, but he isn't there yet. It's actually just Boruto staring down Code here. Now, what's really interesting though is that Code has a slash on his left eye, opposite of Boruto, who has one on his right eye. I'm very interested to see who gave Code that scar, because realistically, the top three picks would be one of his own Claw Grime, Sasuke, or Boruto. Nobody else really makes that much sense because it's implied that nobody else interacted with Code anytime soon. And even then, it's kind of tricky because it almost seems as though Boruto and Sasuke have been running away from Code and he's been looking for Boruto all this time, but been failing to find him. Not that he's actually fought him before. So that's where the Claw Grime comes in, which would be such a funny L for Code, dude. He takes an L to his own freaking army. Be hilarious. And speaking of that, yeah, Code took a really big L in this chapter, the way he got stomped on by Boruto. That's a pretty big L for Code, as usual. Hopefully, though, in the upcoming chapters, when he has this three-way battle with Kawaki and Boruto, he actually gets a W for once. If Code gets beaten here, honestly, that kind of just ends it for Code. Like, this is the time where he needs to get some type of W. It doesn't matter if it's as simple as just slashing Kawaki on the chest. He needs to get some W. He needs to come out sort of on top. Maybe he doesn't destroy the village. Maybe he doesn't kill Boruto. Maybe he doesn't kill Kawaki. But he needs to get some level of a W. Something. Just something. That's all we ask. Because Code has been taking a lot of L's, seemingly for the sake of building him up for his eventual victory in the future. But we gotta give him that victory for it to be meaningful. Otherwise, he's just like a Looney Tunes villain that doesn't mean anything. He's more comic relief than anything if he never gets one W in the entire series. Now, something I find really interesting is the lack of a motto in this chapter. Amato is one of the most interesting characters to me, and he is my favorite Boruto antagonist so far. He's just really mysterious, really sus, and I love it. However, we didn't see him in this chapter. I'm dying to know whether or not he's actually affected by omnipotence or not, and I'm also curious as to whether Shikamaru just locked this dude up because he doesn't like him and he doesn't trust him because he does a lot of sussy things, or if Amato is still off scot-free doing his own thing. I'm also very curious as to whether Kawaki ever implanted the Karma Seal on an Akebi clone like Amato wanted way back in Chapter 75 and Chapter 76 when he was explaining his master plan. Did Kawaki even do that, or did he not? We don't know, but I'm very curious as to what he is up to and what he'll be doing moving forward. I'm also interested to see how this battle with Code is going to go down. Will Boruto and Kawaki team up against Code to take him down once and for all? Will Code be way stronger than they ever expected and get some major W's? And what will Eida and Damon do during all of this? Are they just going to sit back and watch? Or is Damon going to show up and try to fight Code too? Because frankly, if they've got Mitsuki, Sarada, Eida, Damon, Boruto, and Kawaki, yeah, I don't really know what Code's supposed to do at that point. So I feel like story-wise they can't do that, but I mean, they gotta give a reason for why they don't do anything, so it's not like Eida won't know about it because she has the Senrigan, and the Leaf Village is also making a big announcement that Code is here, so I'm just very interested moving forward what all these characters are going to do, especially Amato, like I said. Overall though, I thought this chapter was pretty fun. I liked it. Now, I have that really long video like I mentioned before about the time skip in part 1, where I personally would have preferred the time skip was delayed and they continued the prophecy arc before doing the time skip. However, at the end of the day, we all have to move on whether we like it or not. So, just ignoring part 1 and rolling with the fact that the time skip happened now, I do not mind this opening chapter at all. There's a lot of things I like in there. Now, some things are a little bit weird, like for example, Eida saying, oh, I recently found this out when it was 3 years ago. Eida only just now pointing out the fact that Sarada and Sumire might be immune to her love charm. Again, that's kind of weird too. She should have noticed that a lot sooner, especially if Sarada and Sumire were asking her questions about omnipotence and how to reverse it and blah blah blah, because it makes it pretty obvious that they're immune. So the first thing to question would be, well, gee whiz, if they're immune to this omnipotence, maybe they're immune to my other omnipotence, the love charm. You know, why it took her so long to even think about that? It's kind of weird. However, it's not the end of the world. I can live with it. It's just a small little nitpick more than anything. I really liked Boruto's entrance. That was super cool. And I really liked Sarada calling Shikamaru out with the whole Hokage thing, how Naruto's a role model, not Shikamaru. That was super cool. I'm also really interested in the Mitsuki Sun and Moon thing. I really hope that Mitsuki figures out that Kawaki is not the son who we thought he was, and instead is actually Boruto, which can be instigated by Mitsuki meeting Boruto in the next chapter or two because Boruto is now in the village, which will cause Mitsuki to most likely flock over to Boruto in the attempt to kill him, where, you know, battles will ensue, and maybe he'll realize that Boruto is actually the son. It might not happen overnight, but at least over time, it's something to keep an eye on. I'm very interested in how the story will move forward here in part 2, and what the major themes and plot points will be. But I want to hear what you guys think. How did you feel about this first chapter of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex that kicked off the time skip? Did you like Sarada and Shikamaru's conversation in the Hokage office where Sarada called him out? Did you like Eida calling Sarada and Sumire out for being sus? Did you like Damon giving them the stare where you know he's onto them? Did you like Mitsuki talking about the sun and moon thing with Kawaki? Did you like Kawaki calling Mitsuki a pervert? Did you like Boruto showing up and stomping on Code's face? Did you like or dislike Code taking another massive L? Let me know in the comment section below, and be sure to check out my really long video analyzing part 1 in the Boruto time skip, because I think it's a really cool video. But that's a wrap on today's video, so thank you guys for watching until the end.
You're already under my genjutsu.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, check out my podcast channel, become a member, and hit the bell icon for notifications.
Sorry, Sasuke. Maybe some other time.
Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.